Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the Keim Report, wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. And for one programming note, no Therapy Tuesday session on Tuesday night. We'll get back to that after the Dolphins game next week. And so there you go. And today, what I'm going to do a lot of is it's not a film review of Dallas, but using that game to see where can this, and kind of using the knowledge from the previous games about, will this defensive change actually help them? And why is it important? Well, I think, to me, to be honest, and I'm going to get to this in a minute, but real quick on that, I think it's important because you have a lot of guys here, you need to decide about their future, or you need to see it going forward, regardless of who's coaching. You want to see, can Percy Butler do it? What about Quan Martin? Guys like that, how do they fit in, and what does this change do for them? We can look at the defensive end. You want to see those young guys. I think, can they progress to being a quality backups? Because, to be honest, you need to get some good starters in here. And so who fits into that? Do you keep Casey Toohill or James Williams, whatever, because both are free agents. So I think all that will be at play, and to see, can they do it? Will this change help them? And then better help the organization better decide where they need to go in the offseason at a few different spots on defense. And then I also think it's going to help the offense too, because the closer you keep a game, if you're playing better, then the better chance you have of giving the offense a chance to have more success. Got to make some plays to help them out. They don't make many plays, and that's a big problem. But if they can keep it closer, which they did against Dallas for 3 quarters, then it gives the offense a better chance to get it going, and maybe then they could make some noise, and it just helps the overall thing. Again, not so much about wins or losses, but just for evaluation purposes going down the road. And one little note, Frank Reich was fired by Carolina. I know a lot of you said, well, why didn't they you guys wanted Rivera out a long time ago, but again, the Harris Group has been telling people all along, end of the season, end of the season, end of the season. There's no rush. You're not going to hire a coach first. Trust me on this. Every team is prepared with a list of names for, if you're going to look at a GM, you're going to look at a coach, you're going to have your list ready. There have been times where they've had a list ready and then they haven't made a change. So in previous regime here, I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if they don't have a list of people ready for, even if you don't need it, you're going to have names ready. Just like a team's going to have a list of players ready in case something happens, you're always going to have that to be prepared. So it's not like they're going to get to the end of the season and then start a mental search from there. They will already know what's going on. If they're 4-8, you don't think they have a list ready? Come on. So, but the point is, it's not going to put them behind. And you can't hire anybody right now. And you don't get your first dibs as that. Now, if you wait a week after the season, then you lose out. But if you do it right away, then you're not losing out. And, and then you can hire your GM right away if you need to. And then, so anyways, my point is, there's patience. And I also think the big thing is, you don't want David Tepper and you don't want Mark Davis as your owner. And those are the two owners who fire coaches. Not that it's always bad. I think it was good to fire Josh McDaniels. He was a problem. And I've told you here, that's not the same situation. But those are not the owners you want to emulate. And so I think, for those who want a move like that to hold someone accountable, those aren't the guys you want to emulate. And I don't think that the Harris Group would do that just for that reason. But anyways, just kind of want to bring that up, not to start that whole thing. Like, we all, right now they're 4-8. We know where this is going, barring some big turnaround. But anyway, just want to go over that. So what I do want to talk about is how will this change make a difference? And one of the big things that, especially this year, that has been, and even actually it wasn't just this year, we all know that Jack Del Rio's favorite way to operate was with a 4-man rush and allowing the 4-man rush to apply pressure so you can cover with 7. In an ideal world, that's great. Like the Niners have one among the highest rates of 4-man pass rushes, but they have a terrific pass rush, thanks in part to these guys, but they have a very good pass rush. So you can get that. But what they also do is some creative situations, right? And, you can look at, for example, the Niners they would create some movement. There was a rush they had the other day where you have both Nick Bosa and Chase Young standing up over the guards and doing a little stunt. Now Bosa gets in there, Chase is not, but they're able to push the pocket because of that. And I think they ended up getting a sack on that play, but it's the pushing the pocket because you're getting some depth off those and then using guys in spots that can be creative. At times, there were a couple of years ago, they used Chase a little bit like that, but not in conjunction with like Montez Sweat, for example. And, but it wasn't as effective, but they didn't do it a whole lot. And you didn't see a whole lot of it this year. You didn't see a lot of stunts. You didn't see a lot of blitzes that are just getting home, or you see a lot of the overloads that teams like to run. It was just not a great pressure package. And a couple of years ago, I've talked about this when Sweat and Young were hurt. What they did, some more pressure packages on third down, a little bit more creative on third down, and that helped. And it wasn't because James Smith-Williams, Case Tulo were just great. They did what they're supposed to do. They did their jobs. They were solid, but it was the packages they used behind them, and then the secondary's ability to cover better than they are now really made a difference. They're not getting any of that now. So you're going to have to be a little bit more creative, and you're going to have to take some chances. I think the hard part for that is this week, the quarterback you face in Tua Tagovailoa gets rid of the ball in 2.36 seconds. That's the fastest in the NFL. It's hard to run stunts in that kind of situation unless you can play the coverage behind it to make them hold the ball for a split second. Then you might be able to get that. And there were a couple of times against Dallas where there was some of that, where I actually saw, Dak Prescott maybe was looking for something different and had to hold the ball for a split second, and it allowed a stunt to get home. But that's what Dak will hold the ball a little bit longer at times because he can get down the field. So that helped that. But it's just sometimes that little bit of hesitation with Tua, it's going to be hard to get that. As someone here told me, this is a true West Coast offense where they want what they want to do, and you're getting rid of the ball in a hurry. And it's a really good job by Mike McDaniel as the coach with what they're doing. But anyway, so I want to go over some of that and just, some of the things where you say, what can you take from that game against Dallas and apply it moving forward, and wanting to get more pressure packages. And there was a 3rd down and 11 in the second half. I think it was the first drive, second half, where you had, again, because too often in that game, and this is what has driven me a little bit crazy this year, but too many 4-man rushes where all they're doing is asking you when you're one-on-one. And that becomes very difficult. And linemen get used to you. You make it kind of easy on them, to me. And if you don't have the ends to really push that, to pinch the pocket, to force them back up inside, then I think it makes it even tougher. And that's the spot they're in now, where you need to get some guys who can do that. And it's not happening. I mean, KJ Henry is like, can he be a good rotational guy? That's what you're going to have to hope. But I think he would have a long ways to go to be considered a guy that you could start, let's say, for example, next year. I'm going to go out and get a couple ends and let those guys develop into quality rotational pieces that can help you. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you need that. You absolutely need that too, as we've seen over the years here. But like so it's that 3rd and 11 where Andre Jones gets to the middle, and it's a stunt with Jonathan Allen. And Jones gets to the middle. Prescott gets forced up, and as Jones is about to hit him, he has to dump underneath. So 3rd and 11, gets off the field because that gets like a 7-yard gain, but it's a good pressure and it's a good job with the stunt. But I like Jones doing that. Jones is a good athlete. Use him in an athletic situation. And so too often with those ends, you see them, they're getting moved out wide and creating pockets that I think are difficult, and they're very clean for Dallas, right? It's all the ends. It's just, it makes it harder. If you're sometimes trying to turn that corner, if you're so intent on turning the corner, you start to round a little bit, right? And there's these gaps that get created. And then you have a situation where there's a little bit too much time in there as well. And then you have even on the lucky bounce play that Dallas had near the end of the first half. And this is how these games go sometimes, right? So just a little bit of a side here. In that situation, you have the previous play, Deron Payne tips a pass, bats a pass, or he gets his hand on a pass. The ball kind of flutters to the ground. If it goes a different way, maybe Cam Curl picks it off around midfield. Maybe he takes it in. I don't know. Maybe he gets into scoring range right away, but it doesn't, falls harmlessly to the ground. On the next play, a good pressure on Prescott. You have a 5-man rush. Prescott gets chased to the right. You got Cam Curl coming up. Now, on this play, Cam's coming up, but he kind of goes low, and I almost wonder if it doesn't mess with the guy's head, like, oh, I've got to go low and kind of go down there and be careful because I don't want to draw a penalty. And he didn't impact the throw necessarily, but it's a good defensive play, and the ball bounces up and Dallas gets it. But it's a good play by the defense to get to that point. So it was one of the few times where the pressure certainly got to Prescott, but can you do a little bit more of that? And that's unlucky at the end, but the ability to be a little bit more aggressive and send somebody is something that is definitely needed for this defense. And I do think they'll do more of that, but I just don't know how much in this game. But you're going to have to listen, man, it hasn't worked. So you're going to have to try something. And if it doesn't work, guess what? You're not going to come back anyway. So if you can come in and change a little bit to get a little bit more, whether it's creative pressures or whatever, then that can help you going forward, right? If you want to keep your job, that's probably the way you're going to have to do it, because just doing this and not sending a lot of pressure is not going to get it done. And again, I think the hard part with Tua is he does get rid of the ball fast. So there's certain things that'll be hard to do. And, if you miss on that, Tyreek Hill is going for 7. So, that's the hard part here. But then you look at the first drive of the fourth quarter, and I like this one because Dallas doesn't anticipate it. And wow, what a concept, right? You have John Allen just angles to the right, takes 2 guys with him. Here comes Jamin Davis through the middle. It's a 3rd down and 3. You have someone else come from the outside, and Prescott off balance throws. It's incomplete. Tight end has to try and get a low ball, can't get it. You're getting off the field. So that's the stuff that happens. I think that was the first drive of the fourth quarter, but that's the stuff that happens when you're able to apply pressure, and they didn't do it enough, because too often in that game, and it's again over the course of the season, it has been not enough consistent pressure. But I also think you make it hard on your linemen and you make it easy on their linemen when all you do is just rush forward. And I think, and again, those guys are smarter than I am, but what I've seen is the results, right? And we've seen the results, and they haven't gotten the results that they wanted, because that's why they had to make a change. And, and I know it's not like, listen, you take Sweat and Young out of there, those guys can do that. That's what they do. But when you don't have that, then you have to find other ways to apply that pressure. And that's what I wonder if they'll be able to do that. And then again, how much, I don't know that there's, because if you don't play sound behind it, it's not going to matter. You might be able to get some stuff, but you're going to give up stuff. But I think at this point, you're going to have to live with whatever the results are, because you need to get something done. And so when you don't have those guys, you have to be able to manufacture. And this is why I have liked watching Dallas this year. And you watch what the Niners have done a couple of times when I've seen some clips, but they are not, Dallas will put Micah Parsons in positions to succeed all the time. And if not him, then he's going to take, that guy is willing to help with stunts and take and be the pick man essentially, and help someone else, free someone else up, because eventually that's better for him, because now it just creates a lot of headaches for an offense. But you see Washington's guards all the time, or their linemen all the time, not all the time, but enough times where like a guy, there's a stunt, guy comes inside, they didn't anticipate it or they couldn't get to it. And it's like, why not do more of that when you can? And it's certainly against Dallas, I think I would have done a little bit more of that, because I felt like it was effective when they were able to bring some pressure. Again, it's not just about rushing 5-6 guys. You can send 4, but do some games, do something different with that. You can drop a guy. We've seen the overloads, the simulated pressures, those kind of things. And so I think that stuff will help, but will it be enough? Because when you look at behind them, what's going on. And one of the things that you hear about when Ron Rivera talked, and he even talked about, kind of simplifying some of their checks and all that. And one of the things you would hear from people is that, is there too much that they had to do, too much they had to know? Did the rules change too often? Because you hear all that stuff, right? And I know there was a sense like the deeper of a hole they were digging for themselves, the harder, I think, maybe the more that was put on them or changed to try and help dig out of it, is all about digging out of that hole. But did it get too deep down into that situation where maybe you have to pare back, which is what they say they're going to do. And anytime there's a change like that, you always hear, you got to make it simple, make it pare it back. You can't play simplistic coverages because the NFL is too sophisticated, but you can help by allowing them. The one thing when you see defenses play fast, it's all that they have all these fast guys. It's because they play fast, and it's because they have less clutter in their heads, and it's because the rules of a defense are clear, and their assignments are clear. And when this happens, you do this, and when that happens, you do that. And when you know that, you play faster because you're playing more mentally free. And I just don't think. I think too often here, what you're seeing is guys who, you see some guys doing this and one guy doing that. And why is that? And it leads to a big play. It might be, sometimes it's an edge. Maybe the guy's not setting the edge where if the end isn't supposed to set the edge on this play, why isn't somebody else coming down? And sometimes are you in a cover 4 where that backside safety's got to come down? Why aren't you there? What was not communicated in this situation? Or what rule were you applying that didn't maybe apply in that situation? All that stuff. But it's like when it happens, it leads to confusion, it leads to mistakes. And that's what we've seen. So if they can pare it down a little bit, but like Benjamin St-Juste, how much can that help him? I think for him, it's always been just a coverage thing, right? It's not, the kid has some talent. He was developing nicely the first couple of years. It's not like he's going to be, I think the kid can play, right? But in what way, right? Can he play? It's not about going to more man. I think that's where they've had some struggles, but what kind of corner can he be going forward? That's what I want to see from him. And just like how he goes over the next 5 games, where does he fit in this? Because he's a guy that you thought would be a guy that would start for them for the next few years. Is that still the case? And so, I think, again, he can help you, but you have to see what's the best way to use him. And sometimes, we've seen the coverage issues. I think he's a smart kid, but there's sometimes where, he gets caught sometimes. What's he supposed to do? Where's he supposed to, who is he? What is he supposed to do? Whatever. And there was even, sometimes, is it a technique issue or is it just, what is it? There was one time in one of the first plays of the game where CeeDee Lamb is open deep, ball's incomplete, but part of it is, he's about 8 yards off at the line, which is fine. So every team has that coverage, believe it or not. And the Eagles are one of the ones who do it a lot. So they're pretty good. So, but anyways, I'm just bringing it up. But on the play, you watch him and Kendall Fuller on both sides and how they play the same coverage. And Fuller on the other side does a side shuffle right away. Benjamin does a little bit of a back pedal, then do a side shuffle. But that's okay because he's still in good shape. But you watch when Kendall starts to run with the receiver, and it's Brandon Cooks on the side, fast dude. Well, Cooks is about 4 or so yards from Kendall, 4 to 5 yards, when Kendall starts to just turn and go, not with his eyes on the quarterback, maintaining vision on quarterback and receiver. And he's got Cooks. But with St-Juste, he was about 2 yards or so from when he let Lamb get that close to him. Then he tries to run, and then it's too late. It's just too late for him. Lamb is going to be, Lamb's got him at that point. And so sometimes it's just a matter of, it's not that he can't do it. It's about when do you do it? So that's one thing I'd like to see from him is when do you do it? And when do you turn and go? And how does that help you? And can that be a thing? You also have to hope, what do you do? Do you make a change at safety? Do you put Quan Martin in for Percy Butler? The only problem with that is Quan Martin, and he's played some deep, but Butler's played more deep. Quan has done a nice job in the slot at times, and you can kind of put him there. But is that something you would do? Because, you look at Butler and there's sometimes he does a really nice job. And then other times he's the last line of defense. And when he makes a mistake, it's glaring. And there have been certainly a couple of those that, is it a young thing and what can he learn? Is that something that you can help him with, clarifying assignments sometimes, but sometimes it's not even just about, sometimes he's in kind of the right spot. It's more, are your shoulders open, right? Are you square, or are you turned a little bit, like on the touchdown to Cooks in the first half against Dallas, like, you've got to be a little more square so you can react to either side, right? But he kind of gave up a side, and then Cooks goes inside. Another time there was one where the play before halftime, I think it was a 31-yard pass down to the corner, where the reaction's got to be a little bit quicker, because that's what you're back there for. And he has good speed. He's got good speed. If he uses it, I think sometimes it's about, do you trust your instincts right now? And I think that's one thing I think he's probably, to be honest, in coverage, I wonder if he's getting used to that a little bit, or has to get used to that. But that's something you have to look at. Do you do something there? And I don't know that they would. But but Quan Martin, I will say, has done a better job. Now, the other day, he gave up a touchdown to CeeDee Lamb. I also thought he did a good job against him at other times. And there's one play where I put that up now, where you see, like, he's covering Lamb in the slot. He did that a few times. Lamb comes off, and he's got, and one thing I like about Martin, he has patient feet. Lamb gets into him, and he's physical, breaks out, but Martin's not budged, and he goes with them, and he forces Dak into a high throw, and just a nice job. Now, later in the game, Lamb gets into him and creates separation. But I felt like there were times where I felt like Martin did a nice job in there, still a raw kid, it was still a developing player by of course. But I felt like he did an okay job in that area, and something you can build on. And is that a guy that you want to get in there a little bit more to see? I mean, he has a reputation of being a smart kid. I mean, I like Butler's speed back there. And I felt like even last couple of weeks, he had some plays that were pretty good, but the misses are glaring. And I think that's the thing. Can they help him with that? Will this change make a difference with that? Well, does it, if you can simplify some of those coverage and the coverage rules, does that help these guys play a little bit more sound? But sometimes it's not about like confusion. Sometimes it's about trusting your instincts, trusting what you see. This is what you see. This is what you don't see. And pay attention when you see, and that should trigger where you then need to go. Sounds simple from sitting from here, man. It's really easy sitting here, but I think that's what they have to hope he can get to. And because then if you do that, then you have a chance to, again, it's not just improving the D and like, can they make the playoffs? No, of course it's not about that at this point. It's about, how does Butler fit into this defense, into this organization's plans moving forward? And I know it's going to all depend on who's even here next year. We don't know, but do you want to know, can this kid play? What about Quan Martin? Is he going to offer something? Because, right now we don't know. And so I'd like to see that for their sake moving forward, just to get a better evaluation. That's why this period is important. It's about some of those young guys. And I know it's not going to be all young guys, as Rivera said on Monday. They're not just going to play young guys just to play them. I think there's got to be guys who you think can factor moving forward, regardless of who's here. You've got to find out some of these guys. And so that's why I think, like, will this change make any difference? And I'll be curious to see what the impact in the secondary is with Christian Garcia having a bigger role. I've heard some good things about him. And I know that, one of the things that you'd hear, like, they want more teaching back there. So we'll see if that makes a difference or not. But there again, I think it's the missed assignments. And does that go back to needing to pare down, needing to tweak the rules and get it more, I don't want to say basic, but more in line and consistent, the consistent rules. I remember when Jim Haslett was here, one of the things that you'd hear from players, the rules change all the time. When you change rules all the time, it leads to confusion. It leads to 10 guys doing this, one guy doing that, 8 guys doing this, 3 guys doing that. So, and the other thing I liked about Martin too, there's one time where he's covering Cooks. Cooks goes in motion. He goes with Cooks. So it looks like man coverage, and it is. However, Cooks goes the outside. What I like about Martin, there was no hesitation. Lines up over CeeDee Lamb because Cooks is the outside, and you have Kendall Fuller outside. Just a good job in coverage, just to know what he's supposed to do. And like, if you can pare things down and help like that, then you have a chance to be a better defense, but you get a better chance then to analyze the players that you need, that this organization may need going forward, regardless of who is in charge. So That's about all I got, folks, because there's not a whole lot more to talk about. I was just really curious when you're watching this game. It wasn't about watching the Dallas game again. It's about trying to pick out what can they do going forward and, what will help. So I think I made that point already. And that's it. Got nothing else, folks. So I'll talk to you next time. I'll be back with another episode. Probably, I think it's Wednesday or Thursday morning. I apologize. This is because of off week, crazy week. But I will have another one Wednesday or Thursday. So talk to you next time.